Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is the Simple Handmade Everyday Podcast, where I talk about living a creative, intentional life. I like to chat about quilting, sometimes knitting, and lately cross-stitch, what I'm reading and watching, and a little bit about self-care, productivity, and keeping a cozy, organized home. I've got my cup of tea in hand, so grab yours and let's settle in for a chat. This is episode 90. Hello, friends. Welcome back if you're a returning listener, which I completely appreciate. I am recording at a weird time for me. It is a Sunday night, pushing 8 p.m., so getting dangerously close to my bedtime. But I've been meaning to record for like a week and a half now, and just life has not let me do it. So I'm going to record tonight, and then I'll edit this tomorrow and get it up on Monday, July 11th, probably. So my cup of tea today is Harney & Sons Egyptian Chamomile because, it's 8 p.m. and I don't need the caffeine at this point. I hope you have something fun to drink while you listen. So let me catch you up on what's been going on here. One of my top 4 goals for 2022 was to do a bathroom renovation on our master bathroom, which is the only room in our house that we've lived in for 26 years that we have never remodeled, except for retiling the shower when we had a leak when I had a newborn baby and cancer, which was not a fun time to have that happen. But anyway, so I have been working on this since January, and here we are in July, and things are getting installed. So it has been a hellacious last couple of weeks. We're a 3-bedroom house, so I didn't think it would be such a big deal, but it is. When you're used to having, we have an ensuite, as they call them, bathroom attached to our bedroom, and so they demoed it out a couple weeks ago. So they installed the new vanity cabinet. And then we had to wait a while for them to come back. And this last week, they have done the tile floor, painted. It doesn't sound like much considering how long it took. Installed a new light over the vanity. Actually installed all new lights. And then actually today, when they were grouting the tile and stuff, he installed all the baseboards and all the little accessories like the hooks for the towels and the hand towel and the toilet paper roll and, just all the little things like that. So it doesn't even look remotely like my bathroom anymore. And I mean that in a good way. So next is the countertop sink faucet, which are all like purchased, just need to be installed. And then it's just a mirror. We need a new mirror. And then however I'm going to decorate it, which I absolutely have no idea. So I'm hoping that my friend Stephanie over at the Make and Decorate podcast will help me out there. She actually was very sweet to reply to some very sort of late and panicky texts about mirror choices. And so ultimately, I think what I'm just going to go with a custom framer to make exactly the size mirror that I need for that space and just get it right. We lived with this bathroom as is for 26 years, and I imagine we're going out on this bathroom, so it just better be right now. So anyways, it is so hard to have people in and out of your house all day. We have these 2 rescue dogs, right? The first one we got, Bailey, she's very chill, but the second one, Ollie, is a handful. So we actually had to keep him leashed up while people were in the house because he would just kind of go crazy and bark at them and run after them. So we're getting some special training for Ollie to break him of that. But the reality is that he spent a lot of the last couple of weeks on a leash, next to me while I'm working or whatever. And it was hard on everyone, not to mention the amount of dust that is in this house right now. So my job going forward this week is to deal with the construction dust. It's been something, and I'm over it. It's so hard. It's the whole renovation thing. I feel so happy that we are finally doing this, but I've forgotten about the pain of renovations. About 20 years ago, we redid the kitchen, and about 8 years ago, we built a loft, redid the stairs, did hardwood floors, redid a downstairs bathroom in a much easier way. And I remember almost falling into a depression by the end. I just could not handle the dirt, the concrete floors, the people. And I just, it's like childbirth. You forget the pain of it, but it is worth it in the end. And then the kids, our kids came home. I've got one kid living at home for the summer, college kid. The other two are, flown the coop. But they came home for the long weekend of 4th of July, and that was great. And but it was when our bathroom was torn up, so that just made the whole bathroom situation that much harder. But yeah, we're just in the middle of summer here, just just kind of getting through it. I'm in Southern California with our drought, and we finally made the hard decision to just stop watering the lawn. You're only allowed to water once a week, which we abide by. And so my goal now is to keep our planters alive that are like perennial beds. But we let the grass grow, and it's hard to see. I mean, the bottom line, the reason we made the decision, it was already dying. So like does 80% dead, is that better than 100% dead? I think not. I think the consistency of 100% dead is better. So yeah, that's, we just hope that we get out of this drought at some point. So that is the report from what's going on over here. And before we head into the quilting talk, I'd like to thank Fat Quarter Shop for sponsoring the podcast. The Fat Quarter Shop is a one-stop show for quilting fabrics and supplies for quilters around the world. They stock quilt shop quality fabrics, pre-cuts, quilt kits, patterns, notions, and even cross-stitch supplies. They recently released the Christmas Time Mystery Sew-Along Quilt Kit. And this kit features the new fabric line called Christmas Stitched by Fig Tree Quilts. It's absolutely gorgeous. The pattern for the quilt along is free, and it's been delayed a little bit, so it will most likely start in August. And I will definitely be sewing along with this mystery quilt series. I will also be doing the cross stitch for the mystery sew along as well. So for the Christmas sew along, I'm using the line Merrymaking by Gingerbread from Moda, which is just super cute. So if you would like to sew along, it is not too late. I'll put links in the show notes for the quilt kit, and then you can also, I'll put a link to the supply page, and it's mostly the cross stitch supplies at this point, but they will be putting the more of the quilt along supplies and fabric requirements and things like that a little bit closer to the sew along date. You can buy a Christmas line, or you can use, make it scrappy. You can do your own, whatever you want. Just it'll be fun to sew along for Christmas in the summer. Check out the show notes for all the links. So what have you guys been working on? I thought I would be farther along with the Granny Square quilt along that I'm doing, also with the Fat Quarter Shop. Again, never too late to join in. You can just buy the Lori Holt Great Granny Square book and follow along. So I am making 4 blocks at a time. The way the quilt along goes is they're kind of doing 2 blocks a week. I was late off the start with this one, and now I'm still behind. Doesn't matter. It's all just sewing. So I am doing 4 blocks at a time. And I find that a really nice level of blocks to get into a good groove with chain piecing, but not so many that I get them mixed up. So the fun part about doing these great granny square blocks, which is basically one layer of squares bigger than the granny square blocks. So you've got the center is the child, the next layer is the parent, granny, the bigger one more layer out is the great granny. I think you can hear my dog barking in the background. I apologize. That's Ollie, the troublemaker. So what's fun about laying out these great granny square blocks is there are ways to do the last granny square quilt I did with strip piecing, which is definitely faster. But in this one, I'm just going to follow her direction. So I took a whole, like a fat quarter bundle and just cut, a bunch of 2.5-inch squares. And then I've got a piece of foam board covered with quilt batting that's just taped to the back, and I use this as just a little design board that I can keep next to my sewing machine, and I just lay out one block at a time. And each block is its own sort of composition. So, you can play around with color theory as you're, because each round is a different color as you do a granny square block. And so you can think of it as, you can play around with color theory, you can play around with value and contrast, and that block can look quite different depending on how you play with those elements. So it's just kind of a fun little exercise for each little block. So I've got those. I'm sitting next to my sewing machine, and that first 4 is almost done. I think I need to make 20. I think it's a 4x5 layout. So I've got a ways to go here, but where I sew is in the front room. So I can't really sew when people are working in the house. That feels weird as they're going up and down the stairs, and I don't know, the sewing mojo has not been strong with me right now. But what has, as I talked before, what has really been saving my life is just doing some cross stitch. And I talked about cross stitch last podcast, and I heard from so many of you who also cross stitch. Not surprised. We are all crafty people. So that has been really fun. And I've learned a lot. I've completely settled in on what's called the sewing method, where you keep your needle on top of the work at all times instead of trying to come up from the bottom, which can be hard to find that hole. And just the practice has given me, I'm better at, as I'm changing directions and things like that, finding where I need to be, finding the right hole even from the top. So that's good. I'm glad I've settled in on that method. The thing is there's so much counting. It's very relaxing, and you don't need a lot of supplies. I can take it around the house. I can take it and sew out on the patio. I can do it while I'm watching TV. I can move it all around, and that is really nice. That is the thing that I most love about handwork, is that I can do it whenever. But it is crazy how many times I count and recount squares and still make mistakes. This reminds me of how I so struggled to get off the ground with knitting, because I could never get any amount of knitting under my belt before I made a mistake, and I was unraveling and then just wanted to throw it all away. And I'm at that point with, I think I linked it in the last podcast. It's a little cross stitch project from It's Sew Emma from the Fat Quarter Shop, designed by Lori Holt, and it's cut, press, sew, or something like that. So there's a little block that says quilt, a little iron that says press, a little scissors that says cut, and I haven't done the last quadrant, so I don't even know what it says right now. But I've made a mistake on the scissors of where I started stuff, and I'm not going back and ripping it out. It's just like one square off. The handles are one square off, but that just kind of really affects the way the blades are going to go down. I'm going to figure it out, but it's in timeout right now. But I was just like, I can't not even believe that I got something wrong, because I count obsessively. So anyways, so I am enjoying that, and I'm going to join in for the Mystery Christmas cross stitch quilt along. So I got my supplies for that, which I bought a nicer quality Aida cloth, and it's it almost looks like burlap. It's kind of that brown, so it's a little homespun and folksy, which is not normally my vibe. But if you're going to go with that vibe, Christmas is the time, right? And I was kind of tempted. I was saying last episode how cross stitch is such an inexpensive hobby, and I was called out on that by a few people. Aida cloth can get pricey, and if you get into the hoops, and there's something called like a Q snap, that are ways to hold, your project taut. Those can be pricey. I do something called stitching in hand, which means I don't use a hoop. I just hold it and I just do it that way, and it gets all crumpled up, and but that actually really kind of softens up your Aida cloth, but it all presses out, so it's all good. And so I guess I spare myself that expense. But if you decide to join in, and you click over to the supply page, they have a printout for the Fat Quarter Shop where it tells you, that you need the Aida cloth, and these are the colors, and they've got kits for DMC, and DMC is your bargain embroidery floss. But then they have these, I think the nickname for it is fancy floss, and they're hand-dyed embroidery flosses, just like we've got hand-dyed fabrics and really nice quality threads. And there was a beautiful one, and the sample that I've seen is done in the fancy floss. And so it's not variegated, but there is, like a hand-dyed yarn, there's variegation, of saturation in the floss, and it makes it look very pretty. Did I spring for that? No, I did not, because I don't know where this hobby is going. So I'm keeping it within bounds right now. But so anyways, there are ways to make this an expensive hobby. And then I guess if you if you frame things, you take them to framers. There's a way to make everything expensive, right? So anyway, I'm still just stitching away, enjoying that. I will get back to my quilt now that people are out of my house for a while, and my sewing area is out of control. So I'm enjoying the granny square quilt. So I will get back to that. I think last episode I talked about making some design boards with the Lori Holt tutorial. And so I made small ones because I saw Kimberly Jolly from Fat Quarter Shop keeps her, the embroidery floss is like 6 things. It's 6 strands. And I'm only using 1 strand at a time. So it's just a way that you can just stick them right on a small little 8-inch square design board to kind of keep them organized. And that has worked very well for me. I would like to make some larger ones for quilting. Like I would like to make some 14 and 18 inch ones. And I bought the foam core for that. But Lori Holt kind of makes them cute with putting binding around them. And then you hot glue that down, which I absolutely did, and did not particularly enjoy that process. I definitely burnt my fingers more than once, and I haven't used hot glue. It's just kind of a mess. There's this stringy blah blah blah. It worked fine, but it wasn't really fun. And then YouTube, in all its wisdom, serves up to me a different video about how to make these cute design boards with no hot glue. And she uses heat and bond. So I bought from Amazon, it's like an inch or 2 wide heat and bond that you just put under the binding, and then you just use like a little, like the whatever iron. I'm totally using my little Aliso mini craft iron just iron that to seal that down. So I will try that for you and let you know how that goes. But I think that will go better than the hot glue. So I'm excited to try that. I really want to get back to finishing up the last hat I was knitting for Knots of Love, but I just get a little compulsive about things. So that is the craft report. I hope that you guys are finding fun things to do this summer. Sewing, knitting, stitching, whatever, painting, drawing, whatever makes you happy. So let's move on to books. I don't know if I've admitted, I probably have, but I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I am re-listening to the whole Inspector Gamache series because I want to revisit the trajectory of the story arc that goes through all the books, not like the mystery of the book. I was talking to somebody about this recently. The mystery of the book in some ways is like the least important part of what's going on in those books, which is, I guess, why I like it. So since we last talked, I've listened to Bury Your Dead, and I'm in the middle of The Beautiful Mystery. And I really realized that it's with Bury Your Dead that the whole series takes a turn. If you read Harry Potter, book 4 is where that series starts to go in a different direction. And that's where this is. It's with Bury Your Dead, as you find out all the details about what they call the factory raid, which just plays into the whole rest of the series. It's a very turning point situation, which we kind of only hear about as he's remembering it. You're not actually there for it, which is kind of interesting. Somebody else pointed that out one time. Like, there's no book that the factory raid that happens. It's after, and it's all in retrospect. And Beautiful Mystery takes place in a monastery, which is super cool, where these monks have become famous for their Gregorian chants, and because I am, in fact, obsessive, and I listen to music while I work, when I'm doing kind of repetitive tasks. If I have to think, I can't listen to anything. But if I'm just, doing repetitive tasks, which comes up for me, then I like to have some music on. I listen to a lot of I'm not super into music on my own, so I depend on a lot of playlists from other people. The Nestor Smith, who is an interior decorating guru of mine. She has some that I love. Kendra Adachi from the Lazy Genius. She puts together playlists that I really like. But I started listening to Gregorian chants, which is like the perfect background music. So that's been kind of fun. So that is that's the main book I've been listening to. I only got partway through this next one, and I had to return it, but I've already requested it again. And it was a big bestseller. I'm never on the cutting edge of these bestsellers. It's called The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. And this is, how far was I? I mean, I was well into it. It's a little bit, kind of thrillery. It says it's a mystery. I hadn't gotten to exactly a mystery part of it yet, but it's about a girl and her stepbrother, actually. But this girl, whose name is Vincent, named after an artist apparently, she kind of a dropout girl working in a bar at a very fancy hotel, the Glass Hotel, where she meets a guy, a man who I feel like it's like a Bernie Madoff thing. He's like, it's pretty obvious that he's very rich and he's part of, some kind of a crazy financial scheme that is pretty clear from the beginning is going to fall apart. So it's pretty compelling to figure out how she ends up in his life and all that. So it had great reviews. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the Glass Hotel. The book that I'm reading, like my evening reading, I'm not done. I always hate to recommend books I haven't finished, but yet I do it every time. It's called The Brighter the Light by Mary Ellen, gosh, what have I written down here? It must be Taylor. And this, I don't even know how I got turned on to this book. I have a ton of Kindle books that come in, like the first read books if you're on Prime, and then really good deals from BookBub. So I'm a little backed up on my reading here. But The Brighter the Light takes place in different time periods, and I love those kinds of books. In the present, the main character, Ivy, is going to pack up the house, the cottage where her grandmother lived, and ran the Seaside Hotel. And her grandmother, whose name is Ruth, grew up with her parents owning this hotel, and then raised her daughter at this hotel, and then the granddaughter. And a hurricane has actually, in the present day, has come and wiped out the hotel. And the grandmother has died, and Ivy has come to clean it out. And so we're getting, as she is packing up the house, some things are coming up, and we are seeing how those played out in the past when the grandmother was a little girl. So I love those. A lot of who is that woman? Kate Morton, who I love. Has she written a book for a while? Man, I should look to see if Kate Morton has written another book. She loves these things that take place in different times, and you're seeing things happen in the past that are coming into play in the future, in the present, and so I love that. So those are the books I've been reading. Let me tell you a little bit about TV. Now, we all know, huge Rosamunde Pilcher fan, right? We've talked about Rosamunde Pilcher on this podcast a lot. And it's funny, my aunt emailed me and said, do you have Acorn? Because Coming Home and The Shell Seekers are on Acorn. And it's so funny that she had emailed me that day, because I was watching Coming Home. Coming Home by Rosamunde Pilcher is one of my very favorite books. It's I love big, long, epic books. Starts with Judith when she's like, the main character when she's like 13, and I don't know, probably spends 10 years. So that's not, I guess, super epic, but it's like from childhood till she's a young adult. And the movie, or mini series as we used to call them, has some pretty decent people in it. It's got Keira Knightley when she was a little girl playing young Judith. What's her name? Joanna Lumley is in it, if you remember her from Absolutely Fabulous. And who else is in it? Oh, Emily Mortimer, if you know her. She's a British actress. So anyways, it's a fun miniseries. I actually didn't get to the end, but what I mostly remember is that it stops before the book stops. It stops at a really awkward place. And so I have been loath to rewatch it, but that's kind of a fun thing to watch. And then I watched The Shell Seekers, that has, who is it? I want to say Vanessa Redgrave, and I'm going to go check it right now because I don't want to be wrong. Yes, it's Vanessa Redgrave as Penelope, who's the main character in that book. That was Rosamunde Pilcher's big breakout hit. I probably talked about this before, but she wrote a lot of mediocre novels before The Shell Seekers. And it was really her agent that told her she needed to write like a kind of more of an epic tale. And this is another book where she's like in her 60s, has just suffered a heart attack. And what she really wants to do is go back to Cornwall, because it's Rosamunde Pilcher, and of course it's going to be in Cornwall. She wants to go back to where she grew up. Her father was an artist. She lived a really rarefied existence among a lot of artists in this seaside village, and none of her kids want to go with her, and she's had quite an interesting life. Of course, this all overlaps World War II, I guess, probably. So anyways, that was a fun one. I like The Shell Seekers. It's not my favorite of Rosamunde Pilcher's book, but that was a fun one to watch. And then because I watched those, what was suggested to me was called The Four Seasons by Rosamunde Pilcher, and I think she just wrote this for TV. I cannot find a book by this name, so that was fun. I'm trying to remember when it was filmed. Hang on. Okay, The Four Seasons is a movie. It's a 4-part miniseries from 2008. And this is fun. So this is a story of a woman who walked away from her very wealthy husband and even her child because she couldn't hack it anymore. She didn't want to walk away from the child, but he manipulated her. And so now it is, it's probably 30 years later. She hasn't seen her daughter, 20 years. I'm trying to figure out how much to give away. But anyways, I guess you find out very early on that the daughter had died, and so this is later, and she's coming back to pay her respects, and she is very estranged from this very wealthy family, and she has at this point, I probably got these times all wrong, because at this point her granddaughter's 20 years old, and so anyways, each episode takes place in a season. So I think the first one is maybe winter. I can't remember, and so the story is how she re-engages with this estranged family and her granddaughter, and so every episode takes place in a different season, and it's quite charming. It was fun to watch. It was to discover like a new thing from Rosamunde Pilcher was very delightful. So that's on Acorn, as are all these Rosamunde Pilcher movies. So so now that I'm like plugged back into Acorn, there's a lot of new series dropping. There's some new Agatha Raisin mysteries, which are very fun. Agatha Raisin is a very kind of she Australian detective, and they're fun. They're not my very favorites, but they are definitely fun to watch. But one of my other favorites that are just, the episodes are starting to drop again, is a New Zealand mystery called the Brokenwood Mysteries. So it's another kind of mystery show, and the new season is starting to drop, so that's really fun. And then the other thing that I dove back into was on PBS. I never did finish up All Creatures Great and Small. I'm actually today, I'm on the last episode of season 2. I've talked I always say during the pandemic, as if it's over. But early in, lockdown, I discovered that All Creatures Great and Small. and which is this, the story of James Harriet. And it was just like absolutely the balm that my soul needed during 2020 and 2021. I guess I didn't need it so bad here in 2022, so it took me a while to get around to watching it, but it is so delightful. He is a vet from Scotland that is integrating himself into this practice in this rural area in England, where he's met a girl that he likes, and you just go along on all the calls, and it's just you got all the beautiful scenery and the animal stuff and some fun relational situations where so he was hired by this vet that has his own practice. So the veterinary practice and the home are all integrated. So it's him. His name's Siegfried. The actor is from Mr. Selfridge, the journalist from Mr. Selfridge, if you watch that. And so you got Siegfried and his brother and this very delightful housekeeper that holds the whole thing together, and James lives there, and it's absolutely a delightful show. So I encourage you to watch that. Now, the shows my husband and I, we watch, usually in the evening. We finished Ted Lasso. That was super fun. That lived up to all the hype. We are now watching the morning show with Jennifer Aniston, Steve Carell, and Reese Witherspoon. I don't think I talked about this last time. I apologize if I did. But with those three actors, I assumed that this was going to be a lighthearted comedy. It is not. It is absolutely not. It is about the gritty, dark side of morning news shows. So it's very good. So Steve Carell plays a disgraced, him and Jennifer Aniston have a, Regis and Kathy Lee kind of vibe. I'm dating myself by that reference. And then he's just has a, sexual allegations, kind of a disgraced Matt Lauer, moment. And then Reese Witherspoon comes in to take over that co-anchor job. And there's just a lot of, there's some really good acting. I didn't really remember that Jennifer Aniston was such a good actor. I just think she was Rachel and she did some movies, like I mostly feel like Jennifer Aniston is famous for being famous. She was famous for being Rachel. But she has some acting chops, and that has been really fun to watch. So she's very good as kind of the aging. Oh, isn't that so sad? The aging anchor, and then Reese Witherspoon comes in. Reese Witherspoon played her younger sister on Friends. I feel like maybe I told you all of this last episode. I apologize. But anyways, morning show. Very good. Do not go into it thinking it's a lighthearted comedy. I know I talked last time that we were watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, so I won't go into that again, but we finished that up. It was great. Loved it. We watched Coda, which is Children of Deaf Adults. It is the movie that won the Best Picture this year from the Oscars. And it's got Marlee Matlin in it. It is the story of a girl whose entire family, except for her, is deaf. So it's a mom, dad, and her brother are all deaf. She's the only hearing child. And she has spent most of her life interpreting for them. They're fishermen. They run a fishing business, and they really depend on her to be the hearing person on the boat, and to be the intermediary when they're selling their fish at market and things like that. And she's a senior in high school, and she loves to sing. And of course, they don't understand this, and singing is very important to her. And this is a story of her trying to figure out. She has she joins choir, mostly because there's a cute boy, but she does love to sing. And her teacher really takes to her and would like her to take her singing like to the next step as she moves on to college. And this is very problematic in this family. So we watched it with my younger son, and then when the older kids came home, we watched it again with them, and I cried both times. It's very, very good. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about TV-wise, I always think I've got so much to say about TV, it's almost embarrassing. There is going to be a Three Pines show. There's going to be an Inspector Gamache TV series. Now, I'm equal parts excited and apprehensive about this because I did not care for Still Life, which is the first book that they made it into a movie. And I have to say that it was cast very well. The person that they cast, I can't remember his name, for Inspector Gamache, really, I mean, it's not how I picture him, but it fits him really well. Clara was well cast. It was a very well cast movie. And that's the problem, right? When you're so in love with books, then you go to movies and you're like, oh, this is ruining it for me. What ruined it for me for that movie was that I never really realized how the mystery du jour is just one layer of what's going on in those books. And so when you reduce it down to a little Agatha Christie cozy mystery, it's like, my husband's looking at me like, I don't understand why you love these books so much. I'm like, because this is not the book. So I'm worried. I'm worried about that. Alfred Molina is Inspector Gamache. I am not sure about that casting. That does not really fit for me, but we'll give it a try. It's going to be on Amazon. It's an Amazon original. They apparently filmed the first season at the end of 2021 and with the idea that they would release it in 2022. So hopefully that will be coming out soon. So that was something to, look forward to. All right, our last section here, which I sometimes talk about, homemaking, sometimes productivity. It's a total mishmash today. Here's the deal. Prime Day is coming up. When I release this on the 11th, I think Prime Day is the 12th and 13th. It's actually 2 Prime Days. I don't know how this all works, even though my son works for Amazon now and he's all plugged in on the Prime Day. But anyways, I did want to just mention a couple of things that I really love that might be something you might want to look for on Prime Day because that's when the deals are. The first one is a Kindle. I got my Kindle Oasis on Black Friday, and it was heavily discounted. And so Amazon products usually go on big discounts on Prime Day. We never know what's going to be on sale on Prime Day. But I've talked before about my Kindle Oasis, which is kind of a pricey Kindle. The Paperwhite is a totally good Kindle 2. I'm sure will also be on sale. I've talked about this in other episodes, but what I do like about the Oasis is that the screen is bigger than the Paperwhite. And I like the way you hold on to it. It has physical buttons to turn pages. You can also just do touch screen, but there's something that's nice about the physical buttons. It's got great battery life. It has the warm light. So if you're trying to fight the blue light thing, so at night, I use it to read at night, and you can make the light really warm. I actually have it so reverse, so the screen is black, and the letters are white, and then that's a really warm white, and that I feel like that has the best chance of being dark in the room. It doesn't bother my husband in terms of from a light perspective, and it doesn't bother me from a blue light perspective. I also have a great cover for it that I love that you can prop up like when you're eating lunch, and it's got an elastic band in the back so that you don't have to hold it very tight. I tried to not have a case for it, but it's actually quite slippery. And I couldn't quite figure out how to hold it comfortably. So I didn't want a case, but I found a case I loved. So anyway, a Kindle is something you might want to look at. My son was telling me that last year on Prime Day, the number one product was Roombas, was robot vacuums. And which got me thinking, it's funny because that got me thinking about how we needed to replace we've had a Roomba. I think we've had it for about 10 years. And it has worked very well. I've had to replace the battery twice. Once, whatever they're called, the company sent me a new one. And then once I bought a not Roomba, I think it's iRobot is the brand. I just bought like an off-brand one for like $15, and that served me for like another solid 5 years. But it's not charging. It was having problems. So I wanted to replace it. I was going to wait till Prime Day. And then I was influenced. It's funny because I saw an Instagram story of the Lazy Genius who said that she was influenced by an influencer. And then I was influenced by her to look at a brand called Eufy, EUFY. And at that time, which was a few weeks ago, it was heavily discounted. I feel like it was $100 off or something. So I'm like, okay, I don't know that Prime Day is going to do any better than this. I did research it versus the Roomba, and decided, and there are some things that said, they said the battery life isn't quite as long, the canister isn't quite as big, but it was like half the price of the Roomba. So I was like, that might be okay. So now I have it, and I do like it very much. I highly recommend it. It's much quieter. It's funny, the technology has come a long ways. It's much quieter. It's quite quiet. Here's the one thing that I miss. I'm sorry if you can hear the cars going outside. I'm recording with an open window because it's hot, because it's summer. Anyways, what I like about the Roomba is it came with these things. They're called invisible walls, and I can't describe it, but there were just these little canisters, battery powered. When you turned it on, it would shoot like a little laser thing and across a room, and the Roomba would not go past that. So I felt that the Roomba did better if you kept it in one room at a time. Otherwise, it just would wander out and like never really finish a room. So I would use those invisible walls to keep it in small spaces. The Eufy does not have anything like that. So I do kind of wish that I could, there are some days where I like the dogs are, they're in and out of the house and they're trucking mulch and dead grass in, and I would like it to just do that room, and there's not a good way to do that. So it just has to kind of do the whole downstairs. The good news is I sit down to work in the morning, I let that sucker go, and it's quiet, so it doesn't really matter that it's going to do the whole downstairs every day. But that is the one feature that I miss. So you might want to check that out, a Eufy. Another thing that I was planning on buying a stick vacuum because I wanted to stop sweeping. But now that I have the robot vacuum, I don't necessarily think I need the stick vacuum anymore. But because we have hardwoods, and I realized that when I'm sweeping, there's a lot of like dog fur and things like that. And I feel like I'm chasing it around all the time. I'm like, I need a vacuum, not a broom. But I think maybe our little robot, which we named Rosie after the Jetsons robot made, if you remember the show The Jetsons. Our last robot vacuum was named Mr. Bates from Downton Abbey, which makes no sense because he didn't clean things. But so you might want to look at things like that. The other thing that I really love, that I consider kind of a luxury item, are my AirPods. My husband does not understand why I love them, but my two boys have them too. We all love them. They are worth the hype. But if you can get them for a discount, that is the way to go. So those are some things you might want to look. Also, obviously, any of the books you've been thinking about, definitely search for those. So I will put these links in the show notes for the Kindle and for the Eufy and things like that. So you can check that out. And then, if you click through on one of my links, then I get a very small little affiliate kickback, even if you don't buy that product, like even if you buy something else. So that is an easy way for you to support the podcast if you so choose. The other thing that I just wanted to talk about because I thought it was so fun. I don't know, have you seen this new, new fashion trend that I'm seeing everywhere? It probably says a lot about who I'm following on social media. But there's this whole new vibe called coastal grandmother. And the idea of this is that somebody like coined this phrase, but it is the vibe of how the women dress in Nancy Meyers movies. So I am a huge fan of Nancy Meyers decor. I've talked about that on a lot of other podcasts. So we're talking about shows like The Parent Trap, As Good as It Gets, It's Complicated, things with Diane Keaton, Meryl Streep. And it's like the vibe that they have, which is all very like linen, natural, like linen and white, and, your like chambray blues, things like that, which is exactly my vibe. So I'm enjoying seeing it everywhere. But that leads to me to the fact that I am living in linen right now, and I absolutely love it. I am not one to wear shorts. I will wear shorts like around the house, but I'm not going to really go out in shorts. So I need ways to stay cool in the summer. And so I'm loving linen. pants, and I'm tall. I'm almost 5'9". I used to be 5'9". I'm shrinking. And so I get a lot of my linen pants from Old Navy, which are actually a linen blend, so they don't wrinkle up quite as badly. But I think they're kind of cut to be a little more ankle length. So on me, they really are ankle length. So they're a little shorter, but not like capri length. But that, and I've got a couple linen shirts or just t-shirts. It's totally my summer coastal grandmother vibe. And I'm loving it. So I'm going to actually be looking. I have a couple pairs of linen pants from Amazon that I bought like during lockdown. And so I think I might be looking for some more on Prime Day to see if that kind of stuff is on sale. But Old Navy and the Gap are good places for it, Amazon. And then I get a lot of ads, and I'd love to hear from anybody who has ever bought for them for this place called Quince. I get these Instagram and Facebook ads, and they have a lot of kind of like luxury clothes for cheaper prices. So they are always trying to sell me a linen button-down shirt, which I may buy. I don't love the look of their linen pants. I don't like the way the waistband is, but they also during the winter months, they're pushing cashmere sweaters on me for, kind of less expensive. I might try one this year. But if anyone has bought anything like cashmere or linen from Quince, let me know if it was worth it, because they have really good prices. I was going to talk a little bit about my mid-year goal check. I did my goal refresh through my power sheets, and but it's getting late and I'm getting tired, so I think I will save that for the next podcast. I'm curious though, if you've set goals for 2022, do you take a minute halfway through the year to see how you're doing on them, if your goals are still your goals or if you need to change direction? Let's talk about that more next time. I do want to thank a couple people for reviews. I love it. I just love it so much when I pop onto Apple Podcasts and see some reviews. So MN Zen, thank you so much for your comment. She says that she talks to the podcast. I do that too when I'm listening to podcasts, just answering, oh, I like that too. So I hear you. And I hear all of you that comment in your head. That is always appreciated. I love it when you comment on the show notes or in the Facebook group. Love it all. But I also appreciate those of you that comment in your head. And then Fabric Fun, thank you for your comment. She mentioned that we seem to have a lot in common, and isn't that true of all of us here in the Simple Handmade Everyday community here? We love to sit around and drink our lovely beverages and chat about what we're making and reading and watching and how we're keeping our houses warm and cozy. So that's about it for this week. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. You can find me online at Simple Handmade Everyday, on Instagram at Kristen Esser, and please consider joining the Simple Handmade Everyday private Facebook group so that we can keep the conversation going. And I want to say that we did a fun 10-day challenge in that group, and we will be resurrecting that idea again. So come and join us. Have a great week.